we will take some time to write down the comments for them and also make sure that you rank them appropriately. Don't forget they give you a special gift. Okay, they make a movie. Okay, it is fun. All right, so when we talk about the environmental issues, media is very powerful. Even though we cannot see a lot of words, but it's very powerful weapon, yeah, to fight in the war of protecting the earth and also fight with those polluting companies. Yes. So the Shell's example has been very obvious. Yes. So since it is the biggest petroleum company in the United States and it was under a lot of pressures, yes, especially the Greenpeace. Okay, they hate them. Yeah, petroleum. Out. So probably you're going to take some time. Okay, if you're finished grading and writing the comments for them, would you please hand it back to the names in the back? Still got 30 minutes. Anyway, we see a lot of great examples of people are feeling more comfortable about doing presentation on the stage, right? So one thing I think you have already learned, when you try to read a script, it makes you more nervous. Okay, you will probably like glue your eyes and depend on that. Okay, so try to throw away your script and let the words come out naturally. Okay, you can do it. So you need to have this kind of confidence, okay, before you do this presentation. Now, I'm going to give you some time to finish up your worksheets. And I still got 30 minutes, so I'm going to share with you the videotape by Elmore. Would you please send it out to
Not anymore.
Okay. 好，来一个worksheet，排序的都有点内容哈，because it matters. Yeah, every vote matters.
Taken on December 11th, 1972. Reflecting the conclusion of the scientific establishment of that time. Continents are so big compared to the Earth itself. And it's thin enough that we are capable of changing its composition. That brings up the basic science of global warming, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this because you know it well.
Okay. 好，来，I'm gonna give you some passage, okay, to explain the reasons of this global warming, and which is quite similar to some of your advertisements, right? Okay. 好。
The sun's radiation comes in the form of light waves, and that heats up the Earth, and then some of the radiation that is absorbed and warms the Earth is re-radiated back into space in the form of infrared radiation. And some of the outgoing infrared radiation is trapped by this layer of atmosphere and held inside the atmosphere. And that's
Okay, like when we talk about global warming, we're going to mention a lot about our air. Okay, 可是呢，大气层 it's more than the air. Okay, it has a lot of different kind of gases. 所以大气层这个字呢 is an important keyword for you to know. All you need to do， 你还记得气氛很好，气氛怎么样 ？Atmosphere, exactly. So 大气层 you have to use the word atmosphere. So we have a very thin layer, thin layer of atmosphere surrounding the Earth. So the sun, okay, radiation from the sun, okay, hit back on the Earth. Okay, 所以这个辐射叫 radiation. Radio 嘛，那个收音机对不对 ？Radiation, the same word, alright? Radiation. 辐射，它跟那个波很像，对不对 ？Okay, so the radiation from the sun hit in the earth, okay, and it bounced back.
a good thing because it keeps the temperature of the Earth within certain boundaries, keeps it relatively constant and livable. But the problem is this thin layer of atmosphere is being thickened by all of the global warming pollution that's being put up there. And what that does is it thickens this layer of atmosphere. More of the outgoing infrared is trapped. And so the atmosphere heats up worldwide. That's global warming. Now that's the traditional explanation. Here's what I think is a better explanation.
Okay, so the thin layer of atmosphere becomes thicker, okay, with all the polluting gases and pollutions. Okay, so our Earth becomes every minute hotter and getting hotter, you know, all the way down.
Global warming, or none like it hot. You're probably wondering why your ice cream went away. Well, Susie, the culprit isn't foreigners, it's global warming.
Global warming?
Yeah. Meet Mr. Sunbeam. He comes all the way from the sun to visit Earth.
Hello, Earth. Just popping in to brighten your day. La 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 la. And now I'll be on my way.
Not so fast, Sunbeam. We're greenhouse gases. You ain't going nowhere.
Oh, God, it hurts.
Pretty soon, Earth is chock full of sunbeams. They're rotting corpses heating our atmosphere.
glasses.
Fortunately, our handsomest politicians came up with a cheap, last-minute way to combat global warming. Ever since 2063, we simply drop a giant ice cube into the ocean every now and then.
Just like Daddy puts in his drink every morning. And then he gets mad.
Of course, since the greenhouse gases are still building up, it takes more and more ice each time.
OK， 好，来这边的那个温室气体 again， 你不要讲 don't use the word like the global warming gases, no such things. Okay, you have all the way you have to use greenhouse gases. Greenhouse gases. 加 yes because there are a lot of this kind of gases. Greenhouse gases. Okay. All right. So we have this greenhouse gases. So what do we do?
Thus solving the problem once and for all. Once and for all!
This is the image that started me in my interest in this issue. And I saw it when I was a college student because I had a professor named Roger Revelle who was the first person to propose measuring carbon dioxide in the Earth's atmosphere. He saw where the story was going after the first few chapters, after the first few years of data. He intuited what it meant for what was yet to come. They designed the experiment in 1957. He hired Charles David Keeling, who was very faithful and precise in making these measurements for decades. They started sending these weather balloons up every day. And they chose the middle of the Pacific because it was the area that was most remote. And he was a very hard-nosed scientist. He really emphasized the hard data.
Okay, so 这边用了很棒的一个字，他说the professor was a really hard-nosed scientist， 就是硬鼻子的。我们中文讲硬颈，有没有？那个Hakka people they say their necks are very stiff and hard， 因为they don't bend to other principles。OK， 所以 hard nose 意思是说他pretty insist on what he believes。OK， hard 就是硬的意思 ，HARD， nose 就是 hard nose。Yes, we have a dash. Okay, so he is a hard-nosed scientist. Okay, all right. 好 and because he believed hard data， 这个 hard 意思是很冷酷、很硬的这些资料 statistics hard data. Okay, so that's one of his professor got influence.
It was a wonderful time for me because, like a lot of young people, I came into contact with intellectual ferment, ideas that I'd never considered in my wildest dreams before. And he showed our class the results of his measurements after only a few years. It was startling to me. Now, he was startled and made it clear to our class what he felt the significance of it was, and I just soaked it up like a sponge. He drew the connections between the larger changes in our civilization and this pattern that was now visible in the atmosphere of the entire planet, and then he projected into the future where this was headed unless we made some adjustments. And it was just as clear as day. After the first 7, 8, 9 years, you could see the pattern that was developing. But I asked the question, why is it that it goes up and down once each year? And he explained that if you look at the landmass of the Earth, very little of it is south of the equator. The vast majority of it is north of the equator. And most of the vegetation is north of the equator.
Equator 是那个赤道 ，OK， so probably you should use the word northern hemisphere， 有一个是北半球 hemisphere， northern hemisphere, southern hemisphere. Okay, so something to do with the plants, the green trees, okay, spread on the Okay, so it goes up and down because those plants, two of those plants can make oxygen, so they can balance the atmosphere. Okay, so that's why it goes up and down. Okay, so he tried to, Al Gore tried to mention about the situation, 20 years ago. Okay, and then he further developed something that happened to us. Okay, I'm going to switch back. I'm going to move a little bit forward here.
What's even more interesting, I think, is they can measure the, say, cyclical phenomenon. There was a medieval warming period after all. Well, yeah, there was. There it is right there. There are two others. But compared to what's going on now, there's just no comparison. So if you look at 1,000 years worth of temperature and compare it to 1,000 years of CO2, you can see how closely they fit together.
Okay, 好，完全吻合的 they match, M-A-T-C-H, they can match. Okay, so the graph, the statistic match with the CO2 or carbon dioxide emissions. Okay, so our temperature goes directly into that direction.
Now, 1,000 years of CO2 in the mountain glaciers, that's one thing. But in Antarctica, they can go back 650,000 years. This, incidentally, is the first time anybody outside of a small group of scientists has seen this image. This is the present day era, and that's the last ice age. Then it goes up. We're going back in time now, 650,000 years. That's the period of warming between the last two ice ages. That's the second and third ice age back, fourth, fifth, sixth, and seventh ice age back. Now, an important point. In all of this time, 650,000 years, the CO2 level has never gone above 300 parts per million. Now, as I said, they can also measure temperature. Here's what the temperature has been on our Earth. Now, one thing that kind of jumps out at you is, well, let me put it this way. If my classmate from the 6th grade that talked about Africa and South America were here, he would say, did they ever fit together? Most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. But they did, of course. And the relationship is actually very complicated, but there is one relationship that is far more powerful than all the others, and it is this. When there is more carbon dioxide, the temperature gets warmer.
Okay, when there's more carbon dioxide, the temperature gets warmer. So that's what happened to us today, right? And what will happen in the future?
Because it traps more heat from the sun inside. In the parts of the United States that contain the modern cities of Cleveland, Detroit, New York, in the northern tier, this is the difference between a nice day and having a mile of ice over your head. Keep that in mind when you look at this fact. Carbon dioxide, having never gone above 300 parts per million, here is where CO2 is now. Way above where it's ever been as far back as this record will measure. Now, if you'll bear with me, I want to really emphasize this point. The crew here has tried to teach me how to use this contraption here, so if I don't kill myself, I'll... It's already right here. Look how far above the natural cycle this is, and we've done that. But ladies and gentlemen, in the next 50 years, really in less than 50 years, it's going to continue to go up. When some of these children who are here are my age, here's what it's going to be in less than 50 years. You've heard of off the charts. Within less than 50 years, it'll be here. There's not a single fact or date or number that's been used to make this up that's in any controversy. The so-called skeptics look at this and they say, so? That seems perfectly okay. Well, again, if on the temperature side, if this much on the cold side is a mile of ice over our heads, what would that much on the warm side be? Ultimately, this is really not.
So this is the chart that he used, a very famous scene. That's what I'm showing to you. Okay, this is the chart that he shows to a lot of people and convince people that we should start doing something. Okay, so far we know that all the carbon dioxide emissions has very closely related to the temperature today. Okay, so probably that's why we got so much strange, weird weather pattern these days. Okay, so on your worksheet last week, I remember I mentioned something about severe weather pattern. 有一个字叫 severe， 是严重的这个剧烈变化 dramatic weather pattern. So he is trying to review the seriousness of the problems. Okay. 好，so 请问一下 ，now I've got a question for you.